In the year 20XX AD, the world cheered Megaman when at long last he captured and imprisoned Dr. Wily. But Dr. Wily always knew his schemes might end in failure, and had planned for just such an occasion. Four robots had been hidden away, and after 6 months, without being contacted by Dr. Willy, they activate and begin searching for their master. God, I love that tune. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Replay Mega Man 7. I'll get into why I'm doing a replay of this game in a few moments. For right now, let's just start off the game and enter the intro stage, which is a lot of cutscenes. Can't this thing go any faster, Otto? The city is under attack! I'll try and punch it up a notch. Hold on, Roll. I can't believe Wily is loose again. Won't this madman ever stop? He won't be loose for long. Once Dr. Light gives Rush and me our new enhancements, Wily is history. Whoa! End of the line. The road is too unstable to keep going. You two wait here. Mega Man, take this helmet with you. I guess not. Personally, I kinda like the other one. Good luck, Mega Man. I guess that was comedy. So let's get right into the intro stage, and by that I mean more cutscenes. Doctor, are you okay? I'll bring back Roll to take care of you. No, Mega Man. We have no time. Wily's using the attack of his robots to cover his escape. Look! Those eyebrows! Just got him back in prison in 6, too. Damn it. You've got to go now, Mega Man. Get Rush and follow Wily's spaceship. You could just call it a UFO game. It's what it's meant to be. Either way, now we're in the intro stage, and given that this is the series' first proper jump into the Super Nintendo, things are a bit different. Proportionally, Mega Man's a bit bigger, his shots are a bit smaller compared to the screen's ratio. However, to compensate, enemies are also bigger as a result of that. And now we're on to the, I guess, boss fight for this stage, that weird roller bot we saw in the intro cutscene, which is looking a lot more broken and a lot smaller. This thing has 2 attacks, rolling and throwing its little hair scythe at you. It'll roll forward, and the hair scythe tends to aim for where you are, in which case it'll travel along the floor behind you before jumping back to the bot itself. A couple well-placed charge shots slowly chip away at its paint job, though, and eventually take it out as just period. Believe it or not, when I first played this game on the Anniversary Collection, that fight gave me a lot of trouble for some reason. I guess I just wasn't used to having to press A to fire for some reason. And now we got our actual boss fight against this guy. He jumps and shoots. He's like us, a jump and shoot man. If you just stand to the floor and fire, he's not going to be able to do much against you, though, because he usually aims too high. You're as good as they say, Megaman. You better tell me who you are? I'm Bass, and he's Trouble. We've been trying to stop Dr. Wily while you were gone. I see now that you don't need our help. I mean, I could always use help, dude. It's me versus 8 others usually. Bass. And that's the intro stage. It's not much. And there's the password screen. 16 characters you have to change all over the place. It's actually kind of annoying to input them all, but hey, it's pretty useful all the same. And the intro wasn't kidding. We only have 4 robot masters to start off this time around. They have their own weakness chain going on, and you're meant to really start with the one on the bottom of the screen, but I always find myself going over to the guy here on top first. With that said, if we press the select button while on the menu, we get brought over to here. This is the game's shop. Mega Man 7 was the first game in the series to have enemies drop bolts when you defeat them. And you can bring those over to the shop to buy items from Otto and Eddie. Welcome to Big Eddie's. I'm Otto, Dr. Light's #1 student. Unfortunately, I've lost one of my bolts, and so I have a couple of screws loose. If you find my hyperbolt, I would appreciate it if you bring it back here. Anyway, I'll try my hardest. I'll make items out of any other bolts you may find. Select the item you want me to make. This is where you buy energy tanks, weapon tanks, and any items you can also find throughout the stages, such as the exit unit to exit stages you've already cleared, Beat, even though we can't actively do anything with that because apparently he's just not around right now for some reason. We'll be doing more of this place later on when I get more bolts to buy things with. For right now, though, let's head right into our first stage on top, Freezeman. Not gonna lie, that might be like top 3 versions of that song to me for some reason. The 16-bit really does well for it. And despite this being a replay, I will be talking about the Mega Man and Bass BIOS for each of the Robot Masters. For instance, Freezeman is a prototype robot for pollution-free energy. He's always trying to invent a cool appearance pose. Good point, he's a perfectionist. I don't know, I live with one. I wouldn't exactly call that a good point. Bad point, he's kinda gaudy. He likes mystery novels and dislikes pollution. Now, compared to replays in the past that I've done on my prior LPs, that's mostly been just for video quality reasons. And I guess what I'm about to say is part of that, but there's a very specific reason I'm redoing this one. In my original LP, I sounded bored as all hell. And admittedly, it's because I kind of was. I wasn't the biggest fan of 7 at the time, and it kind of showed in how I was approaching the game. Nowadays, I like to be more energetic in my LPs just because I like being, me. And I feel this is the best time to redo this game before I get into my next big project. Now, Freezeman's stage is the ice stage, of course, which means you're going to be dealing with ice physics. However, the stage itself isn't too hard. The reason I would recommend going after any other boss fight first is Freezeman himself isn't exactly an easy fight. Now, we want to go into our pause menu really quick, because that's the only way you can access Rush Coil in this game. Why? We want to bounce up onto this breaking ice platform, and then do some pretty precise jumps here to reach this H circuit plate. Throughout the first 4 stages, there are 4 of those plates that spell out Rush, and when you get them all, we're going to unlock a very particular ability that's pretty useful for the rest of the game. That's only one of the items in this stage, though, as Mega Man 7 is fond of putting items for you to find in damn near every stage. If I'm recalling correctly, I think there's maybe only one stage with maybe one item in it, and even then, I might be wrong on that, because if you platform precisely over these next couple screens, you can find Rush Search. I'll talk more about that when I use it in a moment or two, because there is a use for it in this stage outright near the boss fight. Now, the most annoying thing about Freezeman stage itself is the ice physics, but it's only when you're trying to get Rush Search that it gets really annoying, because the jumps to get there are a bit more precise than you'd think. And even the jump to get to this ladder that I'm right below is kind of precise, because you need to essentially just hang Megaman off the ledge with only a few pixels left. Something that the classics on the NES only had you do a couple of times throughout, and I think most of those were for optional things anyway. This jump is precise, and I was here for maybe about a minute. I'm just gonna jump cut past that to save some time. Otherwise, the only real stage mechanic this stage has is those crumbling ice platforms, and the way they work is the moment you start standing on them, the longer you stand on them, the closer they get to breaking. Now, it's over here next to the boss door, then want to use Rush Search, rather. If you use it, you summon Rush down, and he sniffs in the area you place him, and if there is a treasure within a couple of, I think maybe like a body width of him, he'll bark, and he'll start digging. This can take a while each time, because the digging is like 20 seconds long in and of itself. And he'll bring up whatever he found. In this case, we found the exit unit. As I mentioned in the shop, if you are in a stage you've already cleared for whatever reason, you can use that to exit all the same. And now it's time for Freezeman himself. For future reference, he's weak to either Junkman's weapon or another weapon from later on in the game. The thing is with Junkman is he pulls a bit of a Crashman from Mega Man 2, is that whenever you fire, he jumps. His main attacks are to freeze the floor. If you're frozen on the floor when that happens, by the way, I believe you get frozen in place. He'll then cause some icicles to fall from the ceiling in the order of closest to where he shot up and outwards. And then he has another ice bullet he fires towards the wall that will just outright freeze you, period, and you can only really get free by button mashing or by getting hit. There is a lot going on in this fight to keep track of, meaning it's not an optimal first choice for newcomers to the game. I'd say, again, go for Burstman on the bottom of the stage select for your first choice if you're new to the game. But in order to get every item in the game, and I'd say a very clean order, going for Freezeman first is my preferred method. It's very easy to take a lot of damage in this fight, though, so don't be surprised if you take a lot of damage. That's Freezeman stage. The stage itself isn't too bad, but again, for newcomers, this isn't exactly a good first boss choice, just due to how active his pattern is. And unlike prior Mega Man games, the weapon get screen is a bit different this time around. The Freeze Cracker fires ice bullets, doesn't it? Yes, and the bullets will split when they hit the ground. Mega Man 7's weapon get screen gives you instead little hints about what it can do. For instance, the Freeze Cracker, as he just said, you fire it forward and it aims a little bit towards the ground. And when it hits the ground, it splits off into more bullets that do a slightly different damage value to certain boss fights and enemies in period, really. It's cool. I think Mega Man 11 pulled that idea off a little bit better, though. With that, now it's time for the proper first choice, I'd say. This is Burstman. According to Mega Man and Base, he is an enthusiastic festival goer. He loves watching fireworks and shooting bombs as fireworks. Good point, he's really optimistic. Bad point, he's a little bit too happy-go-lucky. He likes night-long binges as someone who goes to sleep consistently at 4 a.m., partially because of his pattern, partially because of his part-time job, I feel that. And he dislikes steady efforts. Burstman stage is the time bomb stage for this game, as this would become a pretty common thing since I think Mega Man... Was it Mega Man 5 or 6 that really introduced these? I can't quite recall off the top of my head. The way they work is pretty self-explanatory. You step on them, the timer counts down, and you better jump off when they hit 0, otherwise you're going to be taking some damage from the explosion and or falling into enemies or spikes. And as with every Mega Man game, spikes are instant death, because I guess we have one of those little reset buttons in our heels. So don't do that. Otherwise, this is the main water stage of the ones in this game. When you're underwater, your jumps are still accelerated and you jump higher, your physics are a little bit altered. Generally fun level design ideas, but there's honestly not much of it in this stage, at least in the classical term. I'll get more into why in a few moments. Spikes on the ceiling underwater. Hi, Bubble Man stage. Now, as for my exact experience with Mega Man 7, I actually hinted towards it a bit earlier in the video even. I first played this game through the Anniversary Collection on the GameCube when I rented that from like a Blockbuster, I think. And I liked it enough back when, but I was of the camp that disliked this game for a long time when I was a kid. Either way, now we're at the mini-boss. I think this is Kanagase. It fires either beams out of its hand you need to jump over, or it blows bubbles out at you in a bit of an arc around it. Whenever you shoot them or they hit the wall, they split into bubbles going the opposite direction, though, so you need to make sure you're watching what's around you, otherwise you're going to take some pretty cheap hits. Same with this section. Now the water's purple, and you rise in it instead of fall. They place some enemies around that, yes, but the main mechanic is that you need to use this water to platform around now. If you jump into the water or fall into it, your momentum is carried with you, so you can potentially even fall into those spikes if you jump high enough. Because of that, usually the safest strategy with this water is to just walk into it when it's as close to you as it can be, at which point you'll just quickly reach the top, and when you're at the top of the water, you can move left to right no problem and even jump right out of it. A secondary mechanic for this stage is everyone's favorite, Yoku blocks. Great. Thankfully, there's not many of them in this game, and their patterns are relatively simple compared to even prior Mega Man games. Although I do find it funny at this point that we almost every single person I know who plays Mega Man a lot calls these Yoku blocks. And that's almost entirely due to Mega Man Unlimited, despite them not being called that. In fact, what does the wiki call these? Appearing blocks, bun blocks, buzzing blocks, Tenmetsu blocks, vanish blocks, disappearing footholds, or just blocks. I hate all of those. Yoku blocks just is more interesting to me sounding. And there's the R circuit plate straight in the open. Just float up in the water and jump out, and it's yours. I think that's also one of the reasons this is considered the first stage you should take on, because it's the first letter and it's right in the open. We are getting relatively close to the end of this stage, though. I wouldn't say any of the stages in this game are that long, though I do think some of the scrolling sections can be a bit longer just in terms of pure screen counts. But due to Mega Man's size and walking speed, the stages, while they might look longer, aren't that much so. Though there are a few times where I'm going to take things a bit safer in this LP, as even though I know 7 pretty well, it's still the classic game I've played arguably the least outside of maybe Mega Man 5 or the Game Boy games, let alone Challenger from the Future. So I am going to be a bit carefuler from here on. But now it's time for Burstman, who's weak to the Freeze Cracker. In particular, he does take more damage, I think like 1 point more, if you hit him with the weapon directly rather than bouncing it off a wall. Whenever you hit him with his weakness, though, he does have a distinct reaction. He'll bounce backwards and a bunch of mines will drop out of him. The same thing happens if you hit him with a charge shot. The thing that makes Mega Man 7's Robot Masters very easy is that every single one of them has a programmed response to getting hit with their weakness. And with Burstman, it's this. Otherwise, his attacks are to shoot 3 volleys of mines at you in bubbles, which if they hit the ceiling at the end of their scroll, they will drop the mine and then that will explode. However, you can also get encompassed by those, meaning that they will just drag you up into the spikes and you'll die instantly. Otherwise, you'll shoot out some yellow bubbles that will just bounce you back and forth unless you shoot them, and that can potentially lead to you getting hit by the mines. He can also do this rare attack that he only does like once in this fight, where he puts his fist into the ground and causes bubbles to generate at the floor to try and just drag you up into the spikes. If you have his weakness, or you just place your charge shots well, or even just destroy the balloons that control the mines, it's not a hard fight, but it can be, again, pretty busy for a first fight. Still, the easiest out of the 4, I would say, as a first. The Danger Rat fires out a bomb encased in a bubble, doesn't it? Yes, but it can also be used to encase other things besides bombs. So whenever you fire the Danger Rat, you just fire a bubble that travels slowly in an arc forward. However, you can just press up in the fire button to make it go up almost immediately, and you can also press down while firing to just drop the bubble period and just drop a mine. And in fact, in certain cases, like I think the mid-boss in this game, it takes more damage from that than any other weapon in the game. It's a bit of an awkward weapon to use, but if you can use it just right, it's one of the most powerful in the game. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 2, we're going to be continuing on fighting more Robot Masters. See you guys then.